Hey guys, welcome back to Taboo with Carly Sue podcast. I'm your host, Carly, and today I'm talking about something that I've never talked about online, which is heartbreak. And the reason I've never talked about this topic is because I never wanted to give light to the situation or to feel like the situation of heartbreak or relationships owned me or had power over me, or that the person had power over me for some reason, if that makes sense. So I never wanted to talk about it online because I was like, no, like this doesn't have power over me, and they don't have power over me, and all of these things. But as I was praying and I was like, all right, Lord, like, what do you want my next episode to be about? I was looking on the calendar and the next episode was going to come out on February 14th on Valentine's Day. So shout out when you're watching this. Happy Valentine's Day, y'all. I just want to say off the bat, if y'all ain't in a relationship with someone, don't worry. This is a day with you and the Lord. Take yourself on a date with God. It's actually beautiful. I did that last Valentine's Day, and it was honestly such a beautiful. It was such a beautiful day for me. Um, but anyways, so that is what I'm talking about today. Talking about all things heartbreak, how to get over a breakup, what the actual realness and of being broken up with, and what it's like, and all that jazz. And so I asked y'all on my Instagram to send in questions that you wanted answered. And so I have a bunch of questions that I will be answering that y'all gave me. But first, just want to shout out Pulse headquarters. I'm filming in their studio right now, and I love Pulse and I love their ministry. So thank you, Pulse, for letting me use this beautiful studio. So excited to be back at what feels like a second home for me, because if you didn't listen to my first podcast episode, which is about my testimony, then A, go back and listen. But B, that is where you will hear that Pulse 100 is what changed my life in October 2022. And now this weekend, I'm here to retreat for it. So I'm super excited to be back. And honestly, it's just such a full circle, and God's so good. Anyway, so shout out, Pulse. Love y'all. Um, but yeah, so I'm just going to get right in with the questions. And the first question is, how do you manage heartbreak with God without it being unhealthy? How do I turn to Him? That is a very real question. And that is a very good question. And honestly, like, I cannot tell you how close I grew to Jesus after my first breakup. Like, I had never gotten so close to the Lord before. And it was because I was so desperate. I was so hurt by what happened. I was so broken on the inside. And I had one of two choices. I said, God, I can either run so far away from you and I can hide my feelings and my emotions and the pain and the hurt that I'm experiencing in my heart. I can hide that with the things of this world. I could go to another guy right away and I could flirt with him and try and get with him, or like I could, just numb my pain by feeling it with X, Y, and Z, even if I wasn't feeling it with drugs and alcohol, because I was walking with the Lord. So it wasn't going to be like that type of, feeling the void with. But you can still feel the void of like the heartbreak without going to like another guy, or without having to like numb yourself in alcohol and drugs. Like for me, numbing it would have been flirting with other guys because I could have gotten attention from them. And I chose not to. Like there was literally like a time period where I did not talk to a single guy for months on end. Like I didn't flirt with a guy, I didn't snap guys. I like genuinely, I didn't do any of that. And I actually went into a quote unquote season of singleness, and I it was crazy because the second I got into this quote unquote season of singleness, all of a sudden, like people were hitting me up, which like never happened to me. And it was kind of ironic. It was kind of funny because it was like God was hiding me in this season. And then like all of a sudden, all of these people are like reaching out to me, whatever. It was super weird, honestly. But anyways, I was like, no, like I need to deal with these emotions. I need to deal with these feelings with the Lord. Like I know that nothing and no one is going to feel and take away this pain. And so I would say, how do you manage heartbreak with God without it being unhealthy? Don't try and fill the void with anyone else. Don't try and run to another person. Don't try and run to anything that'll numb your pain. Like when the emotions and the feelings of like agony and pain creep in and memories creep in, where you want to cry and where you like want to lay on your bathroom floor like crying, because that's real, that's happened to me. Like let yourself feel those things, don't feel ashamed about that. Like that is so normal, like so normal. How do you turn to Him? I mean, it's the simple truth of like literally saying, God, I need you. Like I can't do this without you. Like I said to God, I said, God, I have one of two options. I can either one, run to this world and try and fill the void and the pain and the hurt with everything else, or I can choose to run to you and to fall in the arms of Jesus, and I can trust that you're going to hold me and that you're going to pick me up and that you're going to care for me. And I said, God, I'm going to choose option B. I'm going to choose, which technically it's option A because it's the first choice, but I'm going to choose you. And I'm going to trust that you're good. I'm going to trust that your word is true. I'm going to trust that you're going to get me through this. And so I chose to run to Jesus. And man, like, man, oh man, oh man, I can't say how close I grew to the Lord in it. Like, yes, like heartbreak, which sounds super silly, but like when I got broken up with the first time, it was honestly the hardest pain I'd ever went through in my life. Which, if you're listening and you've lost a nearly like if you've lost like a loved one, like a husband or a mother or father, something like that, like you're probably like, Carly, you're being dramatic. Like a breakup was the hardest thing you've gone through. Okay, well, I was like 19, okay? So I was like kind of a kid, I feel like. Actually, I was like pretty much 18 because I just turned 19, but I felt like I was like a baby. Um, but yeah, it was like it physically affected me. Like it didn't just emotionally affect me, like it physically affected me. Like I could not eat for weeks. I was throwing up, I was losing weight, I was sick to my stomach all the time. Like this is just the reality of going through a breakup. And I just want you to know, like, if you're going through that, like you're not alone in that pain of like feeling those things. And no, it's not entirely normal to like feel that way, but it also at the same time is normal. Like it can happen. But honestly, it was just showing me that my body was physically rejecting the person. Like my body's response of like puking and losing weight and not being able to eat because I was not eating was my body rejecting the person because we weren't supposed to be together. Um, so yeah, I hope that answered your question for how do you manage heartbreak with God? And I'll tap into more of that. The next question is, how should I go about the friendship I made with his sister during the relationship? That's kind of a tricky question to answer. I think at the end of the day, everybody's situation is different and you can't compare one situation to the other. Like personally, I wasn't close with like family members, and so it wasn't like I needed to worry about keeping a friendship because there just wasn't one there. But if you became best friends with your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend's sister or brother, whatever it is, like, I mean, that's just something that you have to have conviction about and talk to the person that you dated and be like, hey, like, can I still be friends with your sister or brother? Like, how does this work? Like, you guys just need to figure out boundaries for yourself. So I can't give you like a recipe or formula for that. It's just kind of something that like you guys have to navigate together. So I hope that helps. The next question is loving someone that you can't be with, but you know that God wants you to wait for. Ooh, let me say it again. Loving someone that you can't be with, but you know that God wants you to wait for. All right. Yeah, that's so real. That is so real. And I felt that before too, where like I'm like, dang, I really love this person and I want to be with them and I feel like I need to wait for them. But at the end of the day, like you don't need to wait for anyone. And my best friend told me this when I was going through a breakup, my second breakup. She said, who's for you is for you, and what's for you is for you, and what door God opens, no man can shut. So if the person is for you, like he or she will be for you. Like I think when I look in the long haul scheme of things, in the moment, you can feel like the pain is never ending and you're never going to get over it. But one of my mentors told me, and it was so cliche, and I hate it when she said this, but honestly, time is just the biggest thing to get over a breakup. Like it takes sometimes a lot of time to heal and move on. And so if you're like fresh with it and you have those feelings of like, I'm never going to get through this, like, oh my gosh, this pain is killing me, just know it's not the end. I promise there is light at the end of the tunnel. I can say that because I'm a standing testimony of it because it's happened to me not once, but twice. And there's there's always hope for you. Um, but I also just want to say to this question, don't wait for them. Don't expect anything. Don't long for it because if you hope for it and it doesn't happen, you're going to be so let down and you're going to be so hurt. So that's where surrender comes in. You need to literally give it to God every single day. I've had to do that numerous of times. Like, I'm like, all right, God, like, this is my desires in my heart, but Lord, I surrender it at the feet of you. I surrender it over to you and let your will be done. Because at the end of the day, God, I trust you and I know that you're good. I know that you're faithful. I know that your word is true. And I know that you're going to help me get through this. And who is for me, and who is not is not. And so, like, yes, it's okay to still love the person, but don't expect or like wait for them, quote unquote. Like, let it go. Let it go and let God do his thing. That's literally the biggest thing I can say. Um, one of my mentors told me when I went through my first breakup, they were like, honestly, guys, I'm just gonna be so honest. This is gonna be a very vulnerable podcast for me. And so yeah, I'm gonna talk about things that I've learned never talked about before. But I just want to be vulnerable with you guys, and I want to be honest with you guys because I know that when I went through my first breakup, I looked high and low for podcasts or things to like help me move on, like how to get over breakup 101, like all those things. And I never could find anything, and I felt like I was alone and I was suffering and I was in pain that was never gonna end. Um, but a lot that helped me was talking to friends and talking to leaders. So if you like if you're going through it right now, you need to talk to friends about it. And a good friend lets you talk about the situation 100 times and never get sick of it. Shout out to my girls. You know who you are. Where I talked about the situation over and over and over again. Like, girl, it was I was kind of pathetic, but it wasn't pathetic because it was my emotions, and my emotions are valid because I really love the person. So find you a friend that you can talk about the same situation with over and over again without them being sick of it. So talk to friends about it and invite leaders into your life, invite mentors into your life to walk you through it and to navigate and to help give you wisdom and discernment in what to do. All right. This is a very, very good question. What are your thoughts on still speaking slash hanging out, not on a daily basis, with your ex? Yeah, so I think going back to their question about if you should be friends with their sibling or not, this is kind of something where it's your own personal conviction slash just boundaries. Like, being vulnerable and honest with you, my first relationship, we are no longer friends. Like, we have no contact, no communication, and he's practically a stranger to me now, which is fine. That's just how it is. But we don't hang out, we don't still speak, like none of that stuff. And that's just the healthiest thing for us because we couldn't be friends. Like, that's just like that was not a reality, and it is not a reality. And sometimes the reality is you can't be friends with your ex. Like, you just can't. But after my second breakup, like, that experience was a little bit different for me. Like, we are still able to like be friends. We have mutual friends, and I'm able to like see him, and we're able to chat, and it's fine. Like, it's not like he's a stranger anymore. And so I think each situation is different, and like, cuz my first relationship and my second relationship were so different from each other, and the heartbreaks and the breakup was so different from each other. And so if I had just went through my first breakup, I would answer this question like, you can't hang out with your ex, like, at all, like, period, like, bye. But I think depending on the situation, the circumstance, I think it can be possible to like reconcile and to have like somewhat of like a friendship. Not saying y'all are gonna be besties. Don't text him all the time. I I'm not bestie boos with, you know, my past relationship. Also, side note, the Lord low key convicted me of saying ex, and I hate saying the word ex. And so I've tried to not use the word ex and be like, oh, my ex, this ex, blah, 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 blah. I've tried to say like a person I used to date or an old boyfriend or a relationship or something like that. So, anyways, pray about that. But I low key hate the word ex. It's kind of dumb. But, anyways, yeah. So I think, again, this is just it's not your own it is your own personal conviction. And if you are still friends with your ex, or I just said ex, lol. If you are still friends with the person that you used to date, and if you guys share the same friends, because that's so real and I've experienced that, like, that's okay. But just make sure that you have healthy boundaries in it. Like, healthy boundaries for sure. Like, you shouldn't be texting, you shouldn't be calling, shouldn't be hanging out one on one. Like, that's just a no go. I mean, yeah, that is a no-go. So I would say just have really good boundaries with that. This question is it's a little bit close to home for me. It says, "My ex is already back with someone. How can I properly heal?" Well, that's a very good question, and that's a deep question, and that unfortunately happened to me, where I was in a relationship with someone, and after we broke up, pretty fast after we broke up, they got in a relationship with someone else, and it honestly, like, again, this is me being vulnerable here. It destroyed me, and it made me question my self-esteem and my self-worth, and I thought, why wasn't I good enough? What did I do wrong? Like, how was it that you just told me that you love me and you wanted to get back together with me, and then pretty much right after you're dating someone else? Like, it was super hard for me. It was really hard. And that's what put me into the point of like a deep depression and of not being able to eat, of throwing up, of losing weight because of the feeling of this being sick to my stomach, of not being good enough. Because I was like, how was it that this person that I loved so much and we were together and we talked about future together and we talked about marriage and all of these things, and how is it that they said all of these nice things to me, and then after we break up, within no time, within like 3 months after being in a long-term relationship, there already was someone new. Like, it was so hard for me. How do you properly heal from that? You take time. It honestly takes time. Don't go stalking. Don't go looking at his or her page, at the new boyfriend or girlfriend's page. Don't do that. Don't torture yourself. Get rid of the memories, delete the pictures, delete the videos, delete it all if you have to. Like, I had to do that because otherwise I was going to go back and look through the memories and wallow in my emotions. And it's okay to feel those things, but you can't stay there. Like, you cannot stay there. So just know that if the person that you were in a relationship with and then they broke up with you and then they went to someone else, like, just know that it's not your fault. And like, it's so hard to talk about this because I don't want to dishonor the people that I dated, because I think it's so easy to bash someone that you dated, and coming out of it, like being a girl, a lot of times us girls were feisty and we're like, oh, he was terrible, he was this and this and this and this and this, and like just talk down about them. And I don't want to dishonor anyone that I was with, because at the end of the day, like, they're sons of Jesus and I see them purely as sons. Um, but yeah, it's real that happens, of person you're in a relationship with, the person that you're in a relationship with, and they go to someone else. But just know that it's not your fault and that you can't control them. And at the end of the day, it sucks, but they have the right to do whatever they want. Like, one thing my dad said to me was like, well, Carly, like, maybe this is his wife. And if it is, like, then maybe that was just God's plan. And yeah, that sucks because it's like, why did it have to be right after me? Like, why couldn't he have waited? Like, why? Like, you know what I mean? But you can't force anyone to be with you. You can't force them to want to stay with you. And if you're broken up, they have the right to do whatever they want to do. Yes, it's going to hurt and it's going to suck and you don't deserve that, but they have free will to choose. And so to move on from that and to properly heal from that, like I said, don't go stalking, don't torture yourself. Don't be thinking about it like all the time. Like, just let it go and give it to God again and being like, all right, God, you have someone better for me. You have something different for me, and I trust you. How do you move forward and find joy again? How do you move forward and find joy again? You just fall in the arms of Jesus. Like, this is going to be super cliche, but the more and more and more and more and more time you spend with Jesus, the more he's going to hear your heart. Psalm 147, he heals the brokenhearted and he heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. This was the verse that got me through my breakups. Like, knowing that God heals my heart and knowing that he heals my wounds. Like, I gave my heart to God on a silver platter and I said, God, my heart is yours. I'm going to let you heal it. And the more time that you spend in the presence of Jesus in the secret place with the Lord, like if you are not spending time with God if you're not spending time with God, period, you need to be spending time with God. But after a breakup, like I'm telling you, like there was a month where every single day I sat with Jesus for 2 to 3 hours straight and I took communion every single day. And that was the easiest month of to get over that breakup because I was literally just engulfed into the presence of God. And it's the presence of God that transforms you and that changes you. And the presence of God healed my heart. And it was a slow process. But think about it, like when you date someone, like they now have a home in your heart. And I heard this from another podcast, but when you break up, that home is now empty. And you have all of this love for someone that you can't give to them anymore. And so you're like, what do I do with this love? Well, give it back to God. Like, give it to God. And so, all that love that you felt in the past with like towards your significant other, like, take that love and give it to Jesus and love on him and sit at his feet because honestly, he deserves it and he's a lover of our souls. Like, he is the one that is going to get you through it. Like, those breakups were some of the hardest things that I've ever had to go through, but I had never grown so close to the Lord before in my entire life. Like, looking back, like I wouldn't trade it for the world because I found a intimacy with Jesus that I never experienced or tasted before. And it's because when you are in seasons of desperation, the true character of your heart will be revealed. And the fruit of my heart was the fact that I was needy and I needed God and I needed him. And so I was desperate because I was so hurt and I was so broken. And so I turned to him and then he slowly but surely started knitting together my heart through time and time and time and time again. I also want to say, so after my first breakup, I was like, Lord, I'm never dating anyone again. And if I do, like, they're going to be my husband. Because I was like, I can't go through that pain again. It was so bad, you guys. Like, the fact that I wasn't able to eat was just terrible. Because if you know anything about me, I love food, okay? The fact that I was losing weight, like, I was not myself. And I was like, God, I'm never going through that pain again. And after the Lord healed me, I was like, God, I just like, I don't want to date again. I don't want to be in another relationship. And if I do, I want them to be my husband. And it felt like I gave God my heart on a silver platter. And I said, okay, God, you have my heart in the palm of your hands. And I'm trusting you with it. And then next person that I date is going to be my husband. That's what I said. All right. Well, the Lord kind of humbled me there. Let me tell you. And so then I got into another relationship and we ended up breaking up. And it felt like God shattered my heart. It didn't feel like this person broke me. It felt like God broke me. Which, if you're listening, you may be like, Carly, that's blasphemy. Carly, that's crazy. How could you ever say that about God? God would never do that. And you're right. He didn't break my heart. He didn't, but that's how I felt. And you just have to be honest with God. You have to be honest with your emotions. And if you're angry with God, if you're mad at him, you have to tell him. Like, after my second breakup, for like 3 days, I was like, God, I'm angry at you. God, I'm mad at you. God, I don't even want to trust you right now. Well, how could you do that to me? Why would you let me go through that again? And I was so angry and I was so bitter. But I mean, I have the free will to choose to be in a relationship. And looking back on the relationship, like there was things that I did wrong that I could have done better. And I just want to say, like, for us girls who get broken up with and then we think it's only the guy's fault and we're so great and we're so perfect and oh well they better know what they're missing because we deserve the world. You're right, we do. But don't be self-entitled. Do not be self-entitled. Like, for you to be like, for you to talk down on them and to gossip on them, like, yes, it's real and like I'm guilty of it, but like also realize like those are sons of Jesus. Like, those are also humans too. And I think what helped me so much get over both my breakups was the fact that I just realized that they're sons of God. and that they're human and that they're not perfect. And I have to forgive them. And if you have not forgiven an ex, you need to forgive them, because you can't properly heal if you can't forgive them. And it was super hard for me to forgive the first person I was in a relationship with because of all the hurt and the pain from the relationship and all the trauma and the baggage. But what helped me forgive was being able to look at them and be like, and recognize the fact that Jesus died for them and that they're not perfect. And that, yes, they hurt me, but they're human. And just being able to see them as a son. And so I encourage you to get in your prayer closet, to get in the secret place with the Lord and ask Him to help you forgive the person that hurt you. Because you won't be able to move on and you won't be able to heal if you can't forgive them. And also, God can't forgive you. That's scripture. The next question is, are soul ties forever, or are we freed when we are saved? Ooh, that's a deep question. Soul ties are real, y'all. Soul ties are real. And you can have a soul tie to an ex. And I just want to say, you can have a soul tie without having sex with them. Can I say that? Is that too much for me to say? I don't know, but I just said it. You can have a soul tie to someone without actually having sex with them. And the reason I know that is because I experienced that. I had a soul tie because we didn't have sex, but because I just mentally married them in my brain. Like, in my brain, I said, I'm going to marry this person. There's no one else for me. And when we broke up, it was like I was going through a divorce. It was like I had to rewire my brain to be like, oh, this isn't the person that I'm going to be with. Oh, he's not my husband. So you need to be careful. Like, if you're in a relationship, like, don't marry them in your head, because if y'all don't work out, you're going to have to go through divorce mentally. Like, and that may sound dramatic to people who are married, but it's just the truth and it's the reality of it. And my mentor told me, she's like, Carly, you got to realize, like, you're actually going through practically a divorce right now. Like, you're not just like grieving, heartbreak, like, you're grieving a divorce. And for me, it felt like I was grieving the death of someone. It wasn't even that I was grieving the person that I was in love with, but now it was grieving the death of someone, because he was no longer in my life. Like, we're no longer together and he'll never be in my life again. So it's almost like he's dead and gone, because I'll never have contact with him again, all of these things. And so I wasn't just grieving the loss of the person that I was in love with. I was grieving, honestly, the death of a person that's still living, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, that's really hard and that's really real. But no, soul ties aren't forever, and soul ties can be breaking and soul ties will be breaking. You just have to, again, all of this is getting back in the presence of God. Like, you need to be in the presence of God, because that's where He's going to heal you and that's where He's going to change you. You can be freed when you are saved, but I was saved when I was in the relationship, and I was saved after the relationship, but I still had a soul tie to Him mentally and like spiritually and emotionally, and I had to break those off. And the way I did that was just like asking God to come in and break them off, like physically out loud, say, like, God, break these soul ties off. Like, God, I don't want these anymore. Like, get rid of them. And you need to, it could be things like getting rid of everything with them, getting rid and deleting memories with them, removing family members off of social media. That's real, which no one talks about, by the way. Like, anything for you to like not have any contact or to be reminded or think of them, then you need to do that. Like, you need to cut it off. Like, you need to make it dead. But soul ties are real, and they aren't forever, and they can be broken and they will be broken, and God is the only one that can break them. But I just also want to say, if you had sex with a significant other when y'all were dating and y'all broke up, and it was like the first person that you had sex with, or like you gave yourself away to him, like, I just want to say, like, or I keep saying him because I'm speaking from a girl's perspective, but this is for men and women. If you had sex with him or her and y'all broke up, like, I just want to say, like, that doesn't define you. That's not your worth. That is not your worth. That's not your inheritance. Your identity is not in that. You are clean and you are washed by the blood of Jesus. Like, God does not hold that over you. Ask for forgiveness, repent, and turn away from it. And I'm telling you, God washes it white as snow. Like, I've literally, this is going to be crazy, but I've heard of stories of people who had sex before marriage with someone else, And after they gave their life to Christ, or even if they were Christians and they still had sex with someone else, like they prayed like, God, would you restore that part of me for when I'm married? And like those things were restored, basically, if you know what I mean. Like on the night of their wedding, when it came to them and their husband, like it was almost basically like it was like the first time, which may seem really deep and graphic for y'all, but that's just the truth of it. And this is what Taboo with Carly Sue is all about. We talk about the taboo things that people don't want to talk about, but it's the truth, and some people need to hear it. Um, that just shows that God is the restorer of everything. God restores everything and he redeems everything. And what was once lost and broken can be found and healed by the blood of Jesus. And so nothing is ever really broken. Nothing is ever really stolen from you because of the grace of God and because of the blood of Jesus. The one of the last questions is how to help someone through it if they're not Christian. Oof, that's a really good question, and that's gonna be a little bit harder for me to answer because um I I'm Christian and I went through breakups and I've had friends go through breakups who are Christian, and so I haven't really able to help. Okay, well, I haven't really had to help like people who aren't Christians go through it, but I think practicalities is like, yeah, you don't want to like shove Jesus down their throats, but you can remind them like, hey, like it's gonna be okay, and like just being there for them, like just be a good friend and show up in your friends' lives like when they're going through heartbreak and pain. And if they need to cry, let them cry. If they need to talk, if they need to rant, let them do it. Like whatever they need to do, like just be a good friend for someone when they're going through it, because I am so appreciative for the friends in my life who were there for me when I needed them the most, and vice versa. I know that there's been friends in my life who have gone through it and I was able to be there for them, and I know how much it helped them. And you need people in your life to walk through this with. So, yeah, I kind of think that's it. Wrapping up here. Any final thoughts that I can think of off the top of my head? Ooh, yes. Last thought. In the middle of heartbreak, I kind of said this earlier, but you feel like it'll never get better and that there's never hope and that you're always going to love the person, which isn't always true, by the way. I think at the end of the day, like if you are still like not over it months and months later, like girl, sometimes you just got to be like, girl, you got to just get over it. Like it's been a year now. Why are you so sad about it? Like that's like, girl, just get over it. Like, well, I mean, it's easier said than done, let me tell you. But when we don't trust God, it's easy to not get over it. So trust God with your heart. Trust God with your future husband or future wife, and know that he has someone great for you and someone good for you, and that like he is protecting you from something. Like if y'all didn't work out, like yes, it sucks. I know it sucks. But that just means that God had someone better for you. Don't hear me. Wait. Hear me when I say this. I'm not saying that God has someone better than them. Like the person that I marry, it's not that the fact that like he's better than the people that I dated. It's just the fact that he's a better fit for me. You know what I mean? And the person that you end up with, if you were in a relationship before and it failed, the person that you end up with is just the best fit for you, because God has your best heart. God has your best interest at heart, and he knows what's best for you. Um so I just want to encourage you with that and remind you of that. And again, like I said, it's not saying that, oh, they're so much better than so and so. It's just that they're a better fit for you, and that's okay. And I think you can know when you've properly healed and moved on from someone when they're not consuming your mind anymore. They're not consuming your thoughts or your conversations. And when you can look at them in the eye and say, yeah, like, I don't love you anymore. Or like, you can look at them as a son or a daughter and have grace for them. Like, first relationship, it took me a long time to forgive and to move on from the hurt and the pain. because of how broken I was and because it was the first person I was in a relationship with. So it was the first person that I was in love with, which, by the way, I think first breakups are just they're just something else. Like, everybody always says first breakup's the hardest, and I feel like I can attest to that. Doesn't mean that the second person that I was in a relationship with, like, I still loved him a lot. And we had a lot of memories together. Um, and it was still really hard. But because, like, my first relationship was honestly really unhealthy and ended up becoming very toxic versus second relationship, it wasn't unhealthy and it wasn't toxic. And so it's super easy to, like, move on from the situation and to let go of it, because knowing that, like, we're still mutuals, and, like, it wasn't unhealthy and it wasn't toxic. It just wasn't right time or wasn't right person. You know what I mean? Type thing. Um, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, just trust God with your heart, even though I know it's hard and it sucks. Trust Him with it. I promise, I promise, I promise it's worth it. And this is coming from someone who's been through it multiple times, and in situationships. That's a whole different topic and conversation. Situationships are so sticky. And honestly, I was in a situationship real quick in high school, and that took me a fat minute to get over that situationship. It was so stupid, but it was real. It took me a fat minute to get over it. And I think it's just because you never actually got to be together, and so you, like, always wonder, like, oh, what if this and this and this, and just all the what ifs. I could talk about this topic forever and hours on end because I feel like I have so much to say. And but I think that's all for now. And I hope that if you're listening to this, that this has encouraged you or lifted you up in any type of way. And just want to remind you and encourage you, like, it's not the end, it's not over. You're gonna be okay. Talk to people, let people in your life. Spend time with God. Spend time with Jesus. I can't emphasize it enough. Like, this is where you grow near to the Lord. This is where you really, like, this is where your true character is revealed, is in the times of desperation like this. So yeah, hope this has encouraged you. Love you guys. Thank you guys for listening to this and listening to my heart. Let me know any other topics that y'all want to discuss. I already have a few coming out that are already pre-recorded, and yeah, I'm so excited to keep going with y'all and talk more about all the taboo things in the Christian faith and in the world. But yeah, anyways, have a blessed rest of your day. Happy Valentine's Day if you're watching this on Valentine's Day. Spend it with Jesus. Love y'all.